Hello, hello. Welcome, leaders. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Job Search Triage. I'm going to wait a moment to make sure that y'all can hear me. So just drop me a quick note in the chat. Just in terms of logistics, a quick heads up. I know that I see comments immediately, typically from LinkedIn and also from YouTube. I don't always see comments immediately coming from Facebook. So if you're not seeing my responses, yeah, I am not ignoring you. I simply might not be able to. I might not be able to see your comments. Okay, let me remove that. Okay, you can hear me. Thank you, Peggy. I appreciate it. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, excellent. So I see you can hear me on YouTube. I haven't seen any comments yet from anyone on LinkedIn, so hopefully we're live in the right place. But either way, we're going to go forward. If somebody misses something, you can always catch the recording. So let's get started. Let me introduce myself briefly. My name is Bribiesca-Hedin. I'm a leadership coach and leadership trainer and executive coach. And really, though, I am a management consultant who focused most of my time on helping organizations become more effective. To now I've transitioned to kind of the other side where I still help organizations become more effective, but by focusing on the people. I love what I'm doing. I've been doing this now. I'm in my 5th year. And before that, I spent most of my career, again, either as an outside management consultant, like I went to Ernst & Young right out of the business school at USC, and then later on worked inside of several organizations, most recently inside of City of Hope for many years, helping deliver on their high priority transformation initiatives. So a lot of fun stuff. And now I get to focus on the side that always kind of compelled me most, and that is the people side of things. And I'm going to have a little bit of a conversation because I want to give you some context. I want to kind of help you understand, where we're coming from for this conversation. I often do free events. If you haven't noticed my free events before, definitely follow me, and you'll be notified every time that they're available. But well, first, I'm going to invite you all. Go ahead and just drop me a note in the chat. Let me know if you're currently in a search. Maybe you are considering a move. Maybe you just want to be ready, or maybe you're just here because you're curious, whatever the case is. But go ahead and drop me a note in the chat and let me know, what is your priority? Are you actually in a job search now? And if you're willing to share, I know that, kind of the news of the day to day has something to do with who has announced new layoffs. So some of you have been impacted by the layoffs, and you're willing to share, please feel free. But either way, hopefully this is going to be a really helpful conversation. And I wanted to have this conversation because it occurs to me that we make a lot of the same mistakes in our job search as we make in our careers. Right? We make a lot of the same mistakes. I spend a lot of time working with leaders, helping them become more intentional and strategic about how they manage their careers, how they manage their teams, how they lead themselves, etc., so that they remain powerful no matter what else is happening in the environment. Because I find that by default, that's not what we do. By default, we can show up somewhat powerfully if things are going according to plan, and you let me know if this rings true for you, but definitely not so powerfully when we're thrown off our game and we've gotten news we didn't expect. Someone's got a little bit of an attitude that we have a hard time managing. We feel our ego isn't intact, just so many things that throw us off of our game. and keep us from showing up powerfully. And again, those same challenges that keep us from showing up powerfully in our careers often seep into the job search, right? They often seep into the job search. And we're going to kind of tie those together, because in my program, the Intentional Leadership Group, which of course I'll tell you about later, for those of you who signed up and are on my list and actually registered with me, you know that's coming, and I'll tell you all about that at the end. But I really want to tie together so that you can start to see kind of what's really at the center and the root cause for some of potentially what you might call job search hiccups or delays that you're experiencing. So I see some current clients in the chat, some past clients in the chat, people I haven't met yet in the chat. So thank you so much for just being engaged. I see kind of in a soft search. I'm going to touch on that for a little bit, and you want to be ready. Currently in a search. Yeah, I see you, Warren. Currently searching. Okay, contract position coming to an end. Guinevere preparing to begin a search. So we have folks all over, all over the map, currently in searches, in transition, potentially hoping to up level. So how many of you are here hoping simply to get a promotion, to go to the next level? Let's say you missed the last promotion opportunity, or you were passed over and you're hoping that this might give you some insider perspective. So while I'm not focusing on that specifically, this will definitely give you insight and perspective. So you're in the right place. Okay, so layoffs coming. Again, not alone. I know this is just really, unfortunately, become common and everyday. And so that actually brings me to what I was alluding to. I don't have a slide for this. I just wanted to make sure that we could have this conversation for a moment. Because layoffs are the flavor of the day, right? The year, or I don't know, maybe we want to call it an era. However you want to think about it. And even before this experience and this era or time of layoffs, what I find is that we can stay in a situation, we can stay in a role, in a position, a company where we are miserable, where we are underpaid, where we are underappreciated, where it's quite possibly impacting our physical and emotional well-being to be in that role. And sometimes we will be in those roles for months and for years longer than we need to be. And the conversation I'm having today is really about that bigger picture. Now, I'm going to be specific again about the root causes so that you can address them, but it's really about the bigger picture. I believe everybody needs to be promotion ready, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. It doesn't mean you always need to be looking for the next best thing and hopping around, but what it does mean is that you get to be the one to decide when it's time to pivot. You get to be the one to dictate how your career unfolds, how your impact as a leader continues to grow, as opposed to having it dictated or defined by an organization and the economy and layoffs and anything else, right? Layoffs happen, but that doesn't remove you from being in the seat of the chief strategist and decision maker for your career. I think it is your number one responsibility as a working professional to become really adept at intentionally cultivating opportunities, at always having a plan B and plan C that are just as good as your plan A. Now, sometimes people will hear me say things like that and they'll think, well, that doesn't seem very committed, right, to always be ready. It doesn't seem very committed. And here's what I'm going to challenge you to consider. Who is more committed? The person who knows they have all these other amazing options and alternatives and chooses to come into work at your organization? Or is it the person who mistakenly believes they don't have a better choice or option and they have to? Tell me in the chat, who is more committed? The person with options or the person who thinks they're stuck and they don't have a better choice? So I want you to think about that. I really want you to think about that. Being promotion ready means you're in a position to bring your best. So even if you're not working in the ideal environment, you're there because you chose to be there. Not because you're dragging yourself in after a weekend in tears and of drama and stress with the Sunday night blues, because you think that's your only choice to be able to have either the level or the salary that you want, be able to pay your mortgage, send your kids to school. You guys follow? It is so important that you understand the significance of being able to create opportunities to stay promotion ready. And promotion ready can be inside your organization. It can be outside. The bottom line is to be an expert opportunity cultivator. So you are never in a position to let someone else dictate what is and is not possible for you. Again, I hope that helps you redefine commitment and who is more committed, the person who has options and shows up because this is the one they choose, or the one who doesn't. I really hope you take that with you and continue to keep that as, part of how you see yourself as the leader in your career. Okay, so with that, difference between commitment and desperation. Absolutely. It makes a difference. Think about it. The only time, and I can definitely speak for myself, but the only time that I've been truly miserable professionally is when I believed for some period of time, for some reason, that I didn't have a choice. That was all that was available to me at the time. Who would be miserable if they knew they had another choice? Nobody. It wouldn't make sense. So the only reason we're ever miserable at work, for an extended period, I'm not trying to wear rosy colored glasses here. We have bad days, we have bad spells, things like that happen. But the only reason that we would tolerate an extended period of misery professionally, frankly, even personally, it's because we don't think there's a better alternative. We don't think we have a choice or the wherewithal to find our way into something that makes us less miserable. So again, I'm not going to be able to break all of that down, but I wanted to start the conversation with that frame because this is much bigger than helping you get that next job or promotion. This is about giving you freedom. And I say that, and it's very meaningful to me because, probably 90% of the people I work with, again, six-figure professionals, 90% of them are six-figure professionals of color. And again, you may or may not be aware or buy into the distinctions that might go along with being a part of a group that's not centered, whether it's differently abled, whether it's a different gender, whether it's a different religion, whether it's a different hair color. But being in that space where you're not what's centered and what's typically looked for or seen at the highest level of your organizations requires you to bring something more strategic to the table. And it requires you to be able to maintain your freedom by knowing how to create those opportunities so you never feel as though what's possible for you is dictated by someone who's not necessarily trying to catch you willing or equipped to see people like you at certain levels of the organization. Okay, so we're going to continue, but I wanted to give you that perspective so you see where I'm coming from. I know I'm not necessarily everybody's flavor, but this is a powerful tribe, a powerful framework, and it's proven to work. And it all starts with you being at the center. Okay, so let's keep on going. So I want to start by, this is what we're going to be talking about today. This is the job search triage wheel that I created because I wanted to simplify really talking about some of the things that go wrong and where we feel stuck when it comes to our job searches, getting into that next role, pivoting, making transitions, etc. And I find that they fall, in general, these are the ones we're going to focus on today. There are many other things, right, that can go wrong and get in your way, but this is what we're going to focus on today, right? When you're seeing no interviews, and you can drop, for me in the chat, if this is you, let me know which one you feel is the one you fall into. Maybe you fall into more than one, and that's okay too, but no interview, or you're getting the interview, but you're not being invited back to the second interview. You're making it through the second interview, but you're not making it to the offer, or you're getting a lowball offer. And the other one is you have no incoming interest. And I'll talk to you about that one as well, because that's more around a stealth type job search. And we need to be more strategic about how we handle that. So I see some comments coming into the chat, so getting lowball offers. Yes. For some, not getting offers. For some, not getting any incoming interest. So if your LinkedIn profile is communicating the value that you bring, you're going to get approached by recruiters. If you are not getting approached by recruiters, your LinkedIn profile, there's a value void. People can't see where you bring value. And again, we're going to talk more about that as we move forward. But I see your comments coming through in the chat. Yeah, so no second interview or offer, no second interview, no interviews or no initial contacts. Okay, just laid off, but concerned about all of them. And again, that's common as well. So because we're talking about root causes, we're going to spend a couple of minutes now at the beginning. And I want you to do a quick leadership self-assessment. Now, you can feel free to do this online at bridgewellpro.com/index. If you do it there, you'll also get access to a bunch of my free trainings and tools, etc. But you can just do it here while we're together. Okay, I really want you to just be honest with yourself and answer yes or no. A yes means that 75-80% of the time, this statement is an accurate reflection of you and how you operate. Not aspirational, not how you wish you operate or how you're hoping to operate next quarter, but how you're operating now. Okay, so we're going to go through these really quickly, but just take note for yourself. My career and business decisions and actions are intentional and strategic. I don't react to other people's bad attitudes. I have self-confidence no matter who's in the room or what's going on. I know exactly what's important to my organization and how I fit into that. My good work is noticed and acknowledged. Right? You don't feel invisible. I don't take it personally when my team, partner, client doesn't do what they're supposed to do. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next one. Okay, you guys got those? I'm going to go on to the next few. I have a clear method for course correcting when things don't go according to plan. I know exactly where to focus my time to excel in my current role or to stand out and get that next promotion. I know what skills to demonstrate and to whom in order to grow my influence. I'm clear about my roadblocks and triggers so they don't sabotage me. You know who you are. So I have a process for identifying and tackling my own blind spots. I have a written strategic plan for my career or business that informs my monthly, weekly, and daily actions. Okay. Now, as you take this in, I want you to consider, for those where you answered no, which one would make the biggest impact if you made it a yes? Which one do you suspect would make the biggest impact if you made it a yes? So you can feel free to share in the chat or just kind of hold on to it for yourself. But I want you to really connect with the fact that there might be work to do here. And that's okay, right? There's always work to do. There's always work to do. Okay, yeah, and I see a number 12, the written strategic plan. That's very common. That's why one of the outcomes from our intentional leadership group is you have a strategic plan for your career. And if you continue to manage the plan, and as soon as you leave, you don't drop it, it continues to serve you throughout because you continue to update it to have it reflect your priorities. I see a lot of 12s. Okay. I'm going to continue. I'm sure that there are people all over the board. There are all sorts of numbers. But you're going to see this. We're going to step through it step by step. So I'm not going to sit on that one, but you will get a copy of it afterwards that shows kind of everything that we're talking about today and those root causes. But I want to start on the job search triage wheel. And as we go through these, there are a couple of ways I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to tell you from my perspective, right, what one of the primary challenges is. I'm going to tell you what that might look like on your end and what you might be doing. Potentially that's even exacerbating it. And then I'm going to share with you the experience to the recruiter or hiring manager. Right. And that really is why you're not getting the job. It's the experience over there, the recruiter or hiring manager, that's making the job, keeping the job out of your hands. And you'll be clear on that as I go through the first one. So starting with no interview. All right. I know a lot of you mentioned that you're not getting the interviews. So I call this not having a search compass. This is one of the central problems with not getting interviews. What that means is that you are, let me see if this is going, okay, you have no job search strategy, right? No search strategy. You don't actually know what you're looking for, and you can't communicate it clearly, right? You're not communicating what you're looking for clearly. And that's because you don't know. Or worse yet, somebody, let's say in your network, how many of you have done this? Because I remember having done this early in my career. Somebody would ask me, well, what are you looking for? What kind of role are you looking for? And I'm like, anything. That is not helpful. That does not allow people to help you or understand how you can help them. Not just that, but when you are not clear on your search strategy, there's a good chance you're just applying to everything. Let's say on LinkedIn, clicking the easy apply button for whatever job you think might potentially fit. But because you're applying to hundreds of jobs and your online collateral and your resume and your LinkedIn aren't speaking to a specific skill set or value you bring, no one knows what you can do for them, right? You're also not networking, again, or you're spreading yourself too thin and becoming overwhelmed. What I mean by this is that because your idea or attitude is that, well, I'll take anything. There's so many things I can do. And of course, there's so many things you can do. You're brilliant. You're amazing. You have a tremendous amount of expertise and background, but you need to focus. You need to focus on the one or two roles that are really what are drawing you in. Because otherwise, you will continue to spread yourself too thin. Your job search collateral will not be clear. All right, let me go on to the next piece for this. They can't tell what you want or where you fit. Even if you have people coming to your LinkedIn and looking at your profile or reading your resume, they can't tell exactly, how they're going to fit you into their needs. So I want to stop there and see if this resonates. I understand it takes a lot of time to update that resume, update that cover letter for each and every role, but there wouldn't need to be in each and every role if you were being strategic about the function or role or industry or whatever the case is that you're focusing on. In your attempt to be all things to all people, you end up being nothing to no one. I never thought about it that way, but let me know if that's resonating. You're trying to be so general and so broad because you want to stay open to everything that no one can see how you fits into their picture. So again, feel free to disagree in the chat or share other perspectives, but I really want you to sit with the implications of that. Now, I refer to this as, and this kind of ties to within our leadership framework, what I refer to as goal mastery. Now, we have a 3-pillar leadership framework. It's focused on self-mastery, role mastery, and goal mastery. And you're going to learn about those as we go, as I tie them to these specific job search, road bumps or stopping points that we're trying to triage here. But goal mastery is where you do have a strategic plan for your career. You know what you want and why. You know how to navigate when things don't go according to plan. You can evaluate what's working and what isn't working, right? All of that is goal mastery. Because without that clarity, the alternative is to do more of everything and just hope that somehow magically the thing you'd been doing that's not working, if you do more and double down, it's going to work. That's not how that works. It's not about doing more of everything. Yet for some of you, you feel compelled to throw spaghetti at the wall, to throw more spaghetti at the wall. But here's the thing. The only thing you get from throwing more spaghetti at the wall is a dirtier wall. Stop throwing spaghetti at the wall. Instead, deal with it like you're playing darts. Not spaghetti, darts. You want to be specific at what you're aiming for and why, and your ability to talk about that and have people come to your LinkedIn or read your resume and see exactly where you fit in. You're not going to fit in for 95% of them, but for 5%, you are the obvious person they want to pull in for an interview. Because right now, when you're throwing spaghetti at the wall, you're not the obvious choice for anyone. You think you're leaving yourself open for that other 95%, but you're actually cutting yourself off from the 5% you would have been perfect for. Okay, I'm going to keep going because we can stay with that indefinitely. But again, the way you can think about goal mastery is that you have a strategic plan for your career and you're equipped to address the failures, the setbacks, things going sideways, because that's just part of being strategic. That's part of having a plan. You know where you're going and why. Again, you don't get thrown off your game by setbacks. Your career decisions are on purpose. Something I see really often with people who have a goal mastery gap. Of course, you don't have a strategic plan for your career, but more importantly, when you look back over your career honestly, you'll notice that your career is a series of reactions, right? It's just what happened incidentally and then you reacted to whatever's going on in the environment around you, instead of making strategic decisions. There's no intention behind how your career unfolded. That's like just going and sitting at a bus stop and just kind of seeing where the bus takes you. You have no idea where you're going. So you don't even know when it's time to like ask for a transfer and get on the next line. You just sit there, and if you're lucky, for a while they're going in the right direction and you like it. But what happens when you stop liking the direction they're going, or when they shift in a direction you simply don't want to go? Okay, I hope this is really landing, because again, the challenges you see in your job search, they don't just live in your job search. There's a good chance they're represented throughout your career, how you manage your career, how you lead yourself and your teams, how you make professional decisions. So I want you to see opportunities that addressing the root cause will kind of have a bit of a halo effect on a whole bunch of different areas. Okay, yes, and thank you, Candace. Yeah, know what value you'll bring by being strategic and focusing. It's so tempting to try to be all things to all people, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work, right? If you need a specialty, I'm just going to say a surgery, you can go to a generalist, or you can go to the surgeon that specializes in that. Now, unless you have an HMO that doesn't allow you access to the specialist, there's no way you're going to choose the generalist. Same is true here. They want the expert. It's going to bring all that expertise and brilliance that they receive from you because you're focused and able to articulate it. Okay, let's keep on going. Okay, the next one is no offer or lowball offer. Oh, there you are. Okay, sorry about that. Something disappeared off my screen, but I think we're good. Okay, no offer or lowball offer. So this can be disheartening, because if you got to this phase, that means you made it through the first interview, you made it through the second interview, so you're doing something right, but something got in the way of the hiring manager seeing you as the person who's going to address what they need addressed. Okay? So I call this a value void, right? And you'll understand why in a moment, but you can probably already connect with that. It is absolutely a value void. The value you bring and the pain they have aren't matching up. There's not alignment there. Right? There's a good chance, in fact, they like you, but they can't see how you fit into that picture. Again, this is a later extension of that first no interview piece. And we'll talk about why and how it's different. But when you're in the interviews, when you're having these conversations, one of the things you need to do is be listening for the cues about what the real pain points are. There's what's on the job description and what they're trying to say because they want to seem like an appealing employer. And then there's your ability to dig and discover what is actually going on behind the scenes. Right? They can't get somebody to stay in this particular role for more than a few months because they're not being clear about what they need. Or the problem they actually need addressed is something they're not willing to talk about in the interview phase. Right? Let's say that they're having some real PR nightmares, but they don't really want to put it out there until you're on board. You're going to need to do your homework. Because that means if you're not getting the offer, again, It's possible that simply as the interview progressed, they got clearer and clearer about what they needed, and somebody else communicated that they're able to address that need more effectively, and that's fine. But a lot of the time, that's not the case, and you may have simply missed the opportunity to really hear and dig for what is really going on behind the scenes. And some of you can probably share some examples about what's you having an experience like that. So please, feel free to share those examples in the chat. But I want you to consider that if you can understand what's truly happening, what's truly important, what the real problem is, what the real priority is, you can show up more effectively, ready to address that. And in fact, even when the organization is not really willing to address it, if you bring it up first, then it's almost an experience of, oh, they get us. Like this person gets us. This person understands what's going on. So if you're not getting the offer, there's just a good chance you're missing the cues and those opportunities. The way I see it from the side of the organization is they brought you through to multiple interviews. They like you, but they don't see how you're going to solve their specific problem as well as someone else. They like you. They like talking to you. They see that you are probably would be a great or valuable addition to the team, but there's something, some problem, some pain they're not sure you're able to help them address. You need to listen for that pain by asking more targeted questions. Right? When you ask, for example, when you ask about priorities, right? What would you say are the top 4 or 5 priorities for this role? Okay. If you had to look back at what has kept this role from being successful in the past, right? Which of these stands out? What's missing that if it was available would make this role really successful? Ask questions like you're an investigator, because you're investigating whether this is a place that you want to bring your brilliance. Because let me tell you, we have this approach around our roles as though it's our company that gives us value. But I want you to understand, and you understand this more in depth, in the intentional leadership group, in my programs, that you are the center of value. You decide where you're going to take your brilliance and all of your background and all of your expertise to add value. You'll see people's LinkedIn profiles, and it's apparent that they believe that the value they bring is only in association to the name of the employers they worked for. Now, sometimes it makes sense to do that because it communicates something very quickly. But I want you to just steer clear of tying your value to the organization you work for. It's great to work for a magnificent company, but you are the center of value, not the organization. You are the center of value. So when you show up to these interviews, you need to be really investigating whether this is where you want to take your next career step, whether this is where and how you want to contribute. Okay, I'm going to continue, but this one is really falling in the second pillar, which is referred to as role mastery. Now, role mastery, it really is about your ability to understand what moves the needle of success and to make decisions that make sense for that. Right? You know how to structure your time and effort to get the highest ROI. You know what skills and behaviors are actually important to your organization, right? And how to demonstrate those. You have the ability to influence decision makers in your organization, right? You actually have influence. And again, role mastery in your career, without it, that's what keeps you working nights and weekends. That's what has you get overlooked and passed over for promotions, because you believe all work is created equal. All work is not created equal. There is work that is more important and more strategic and more intentional that you can spend your time on than other work. See, when you treat all work as created equal, you're busy and you might even be getting a lot done, but what you're not doing is demonstrating your focus on what the organization actually values. I mean, think about it for a second, right? And this really ties to the interview. Think about it for a second. This really ties to the interview, because how many times have you seen an organization say, let's say, they have values pillars and they post them in the break room or something like that, and they talk about them at the quarterly meetings. But then when it comes time, for example, to promote somebody or to make investments in certain parts of the organization, those pillars are not represented. Have you ever noticed that? The organization will say they value, certain qualities or certain characteristics, but really the person they're promoting and giving the opportunities to does not reflect those values at all. They just got X work done or came in under budget or, exceeded their sales quota, whatever the case is. But you need to get really, really good at distinguishing and evaluating and assessing what's actually important to an organization versus what they say is important. They're not the same thing. You need to get really great at distinguishing those. So again, it's not even that they're trying to lie to you. It is that organizations speak aspirationally. Yes? They talk about how they want to be, how they want to be seen, what they want to care about. Not so much what they actually do care about. What they do care about, you observe. Where are they investing their time? Where are they investing their money? Who are they investing in? Who are they promoting? Right? So, for example, in the intentional leadership group, we give you a process so that you can actually evaluate what's happening in your organization. In fact, I think we just did that in our last session. We're partway through a cohort now. So people are now out in their organizations looking for the signs and the indicators about what's actually important versus what the organization says is important. Not the same thing. And until you get good at that, it's likely that I'll continue to show up in your interviews as well. If you can't distinguish what's actually important and find a way to ask those right questions and get to the root of the pain the organization's having, that's having them fill this role or want a certain skill set, you're going to continue to miss the mark and get the lowball offers or no offer. Okay. And I'll make sure that there's time for Q&A. So if you do drop questions in the chat, I'm going to ask you to drop them in again later, because odds are I'm going to have miss them as we go. But I do welcome your questions. Let me know where this lands for you, where this resonates, how you see yourself applying this. But again, you see the parallel. How you manage your career is how you manage your job search. Right? It's also how you manage your teams. It's also how you lead yourself. Okay, next one. No second interview. This one's fun because this is the value void, the one we just talked about, right? So you're not articulating how you address their pain or what they need. But this is what I call a self-confidence creator. Now, this is it's common. There might be other reasons you're not getting the second interview, but more likely than not, no offense, but you're being weird. You're getting weird in the interview. You're all up in your head. You're thinking, oh, please don't ask me about the gap on my resume. You're so stressed out about putting your best forward that you literally get in your own way. Again, you're self-conscious, you're needy, you're uncommunicative, you're just a yes and nodding to everything they say and not like matching their energy because you're so up in your head. You don't ask smart questions, again, because you're so up in your head. So can you see that? And again, I don't know how else to put it other than this, to say you get weird. You go in the interview, you're pretending to be one way or to have, one type of energy, but it's apparent during the interview that's not what's coming through. I liken this to the used car salesperson experience, right? When you walk on a lot and the salesperson walks over and they're acting like they are absolutely your best friend, and they may even be saying and doing all the right things, but it just lands as kind of gross or whatever the case is, it lands weird. Or if you've ever been on a date after potentially not being on a date for a long time, and all of a sudden you get really needy and you're not acting like yourself, you're wondering how you need to be and look and act and talk for the other person to want to see you again, instead of just being with the other person. And likely, if you haven't been that weird person, there's a chance you've been on the other side, right? On a date with the person who's just not right there with you, right? They're not there with you. They're in their heads. They're trying to figure out how to be everything that they think you want them to be. Okay. So again, drop me notes in the chat. Let me know if this is resonating. So what's happening here in the experience to the interviewer, to the hiring manager, is they don't enjoy talking to you, right? They don't enjoy it enough to actually sit through and see what value you bring. In fact, there's a good chance that you might even make the interviewer uncomfortable. So think about that. If you make the interviewer uncomfortable, what are the odds they're going to bring you back for a second interview? What are the odds they're going to bring you back for a second interview when they feel on edge and uncomfortable talking to you because you're putting out a kind of weird energy? And again, we've probably all experienced this from people. It feels like they're doing and saying all the right things, but something doesn't land. You guys know what I mean? And this happens when we pretend to have one intention, but we actually have another. Kind of like the person who raises their hand in a meeting to quote unquote be helpful, but all they want is to try to one up whatever you just said, right? Like, you can see there's something else there. It's not about being helpful. Now, sometimes people really are being helpful, and maybe it does one up what you said, but you can distinguish that that's not what it was about. And same thing happens in interviews. When you pretend to have one intention, but you actually have another, right? That is at the root of why you're not connecting with people, why you're not connecting with your interviewer, why they don't want you back for a second interview, even if on paper your resume looked fantastic. Now, this one in particular this is the very first pillar. This is always where we start. This is self-mastery, or a lack of self-mastery. Now, all of us have work to do on self-mastery, right? That part never goes away. Oh, actually, hold on a second. I think, well, we're going to talk about self-mastery. this actually kind of falls into 2 areas. So I realize I put the other wheel piece in first. So we'll go with it. We're going to go with it. And then we'll talk about self-mastery altogether for both of these. The other piece is no incoming interest. Well, before I do, let me just say self-mastery really is about knowing yourself. Right? It's about knowing who you are, what triggers you, what lights you up, being able to distinguish the secret judgments you have towards yourself and to others. It's understanding your leadership style, your conflict style. It's being able to maintain your self-confidence even when things aren't going according to plan. So I just wanted to give you that perspective on self-mastery before we go forward. It applies here when we're talking about no incoming interest either. And again, I call this a stealth mode syndrome search. Sometimes we think we need to be in stealth mode because we don't want our organization to know that we're searching. And that's fine, right? Sometimes that is the right decision and that is strategic. But people interpret not having their organization know that they're searching with not networking, not having a LinkedIn that clearly articulates your value, not having updated, career collateral like your resume and your cover letter template, and, having your interview skills sharpened. So the way I put this is that it is a secret job search that lives only in your head because you're not actually doing anything about it. Again, you can see how this ties into self-mastery or a self-mastery gap. So what it looks like is you're not networking. You're not showcasing your expertise. You're not investing in even figuring out what you want to be doing next. Sometimes you're simply wallowing in misery because you're so afraid of the employer you cannot wait to leave to find out or to think you might be job searching. Can you see how kind of backwards that is? Can you see how backwards that is? I really want to hear from you guys. Can you see how backwards it is? For you to hide not only your potential, but your openness to other opportunities for fear that the very same organization you're trying to escape might know you're open to opportunities. This does not make sense. But we do this all the time. We do this all the time. Okay. So your network and your industry don't know you're searching. You're not investing as though you're searching. You're even afraid to go to networking events for fear that your organization will think something. Now, oftentimes this happens because maybe they've really done a number on you, right? Maybe they've really done a number on you. Maybe you've been in a bad situation for a long time. That happens. Remember, I talked about the only reason we stay in misery is because we think we don't have a choice. Yeah. And that might be where you are. And that might be why you're in this space of just living in misery. You have this stealth job search. You haven't invested in figuring out what you need to do to get it to work for you, even if you are going to be kind of on the down low and stealthy. And so you sit in this role indefinitely. So this is a lack of self-mastery. This is a lack of self-mastery. This is you sitting in self-doubt and making decisions out of fear instead of making decisions out of the future you want to live into. Instead of making decisions out of your strategic plan. Instead of making decisions out of that next role that you want, or the legacy you want to create, or the lifestyle you want to have. You're making decisions out of what you fear versus out of what you want. And we need to cut that out. It messes with us personally. It messes with us professionally. You need to have better decision drivers. You need to make decisions on purpose, compelled by what you want for yourself and your life and your career and your team and your family, and right? Not afraid of what somebody is going to say or think. But again, you see this in your job search, and that's not the only place you're seeing it. There's a good chance you're seeing it in how you manage your career, and how you manage your relationships, and how you manage your team, and in how you manage yourself. Okay. So let's go on. Self-mastery. Again, you know yourself, and you can get out of your own way. Who gets in there? Who here gets in their own way? Drop me a me in the chat. Do you get in your own way? Do you know on some level that you are your biggest roadblock? That it's not a bad boss. It's not a bad economy. It is, it is not the city you live in. On some level, it is you. Because for most of us, it is us. But you know what? That is the best freaking news ever. Because that's the thing you control. You don't control anybody else. You don't control the economy. You don't control people's biases and ass backwards perspectives. You don't control any of that. You don't control ageism or racism or anything like that. Right? But you do control you. Okay. So, some examples, right? When you actually do have self-mastery is that you don't feel personally targeted when other people, quote unquote, behave badly or belligerent or don't do what they're supposed to do. You are aware of your biases and your triggers so they don't mess you up. Right? And the funny thing about this is that we don't know when the quality of our thinking is compromised. I want you to think about that. We don't know when the quality of our thinking is compromised. We think that because our brain served it up, then it must be true, right? It must be accurate. And I liken this to, right, just to kind of as evidence, to drinking and texting, right? Or drinking and posting, or drinking and dialing, for those of you who still call. Have you ever heard of that? Drinking and dialing is what it used to be called. But now I think it's, drunk texting. And that is when you have a couple of glasses of Chardonnay or whatever your beverage of choice is, and all of a sudden the liquid courage is kicking in, and you think now is the perfect time to call your boss, your partner, your colleague, your neighbor, your best friend, and tell them exactly what you think about them. In the moment, you feel so bold and so empowered. You're like, how did I not do this earlier? But what happens the next day? The next day, yeah, you're literally like, you don't know. You just want the earth to, open up and swallow you whole. But I say that, as funny as it is, because it's the same experience. You don't know that the quality of your thinking is compromised. And with self-mastery, you get better at noticing when the quality of your thinking is compromised. Okay. So this is the 3-pillar framework we just went through, right? Self-mastery, role mastery, and goal mastery. And this is what we focus on in the intentional leadership group. And that addresses, of course, not just the challenges in the job search, but the challenges in your career progression and growth and leadership impact, etc. And the reason this is what we focus on. We focus on it because it works, right? This is why I use it. I created it, and it's not that I'm saying it works because I created it, but I created it because it works, right? Now, here's what I want you to understand. Everything, right? Everything that we cover in the intentional leadership group focuses on what we control. And I want you to take that with you, because you should be spending 90% of your time focused on what you control. Again, you can angst about whether the interviewer has an attitude. You can angst about what the economy is doing. You can angst about all of those things that you don't control. And of course, we're human. We have opinions. We're allowed to have opinions. Yes. But that's not where I want you to invest your energy. I want you to invest your energy in what you actually control. So look, just to give you a couple of examples, and I know there are a lot of you here, and I know there are a lot of current and past clients here, but and I won't out anyone whether they're here or not. But one client, right? She worked for this organization well below the level she should have been in, right? Brilliant woman, well below the level she should have been in. And so she would try to find opportunities to contribute. She would give good ideas, recommendations, raise her hands for things. And the organization just kept overlooking it. But what was happening is it wasn't just rolling off of her back. The organization kept overlooking it, and she was getting angrier and angrier, right? Because she's like, well, I'm trying harder and harder, and it's not doing anything. I'm like, yeah, because you're focusing on what you don't control. She wanted them to have a different response. They'd already shown them who they are. They'd already shown her, right, what they valued and didn't value. See, there's something I say, and you guys those of you who've been with me before have heard me say this many times. The only thing more important than knowing where you fit in your organization's strategic plan is knowing where they fit into yours. I'll repeat that. The only thing more important than knowing where you fit in your organization's strategic plan is knowing where they fit into yours. There's a lot in that statement, because it assumes you do have it. Not only do you have a strategic plan, yes, but it also assumes you understand what's in your organization's strategic plan and how you fit into that. And this is so critical. It's so important, because otherwise you're out there making decisions, trying to have the organization value you, when as far as they're concerned, they're not trying to catch you winning. They don't see you in their strategic plan. You are not part of their plan. You don't fit into their plan. But you behave as though they do. Right? As though they do want to catch you winning. It doesn't matter how many times they've shown you that that's not what's going on. Yes? So anyway, back to my client. A couple times I kind of had to talk her down, because I knew she kind of wanted to strangle someone. Again, we're human. That doesn't necessarily go away. We may be less triggered, but there's a certain point where we feel kind of so beaten and bruised, yes, that we feel like we really want to react, and probably not in a way that's going to be helpful or conducive to what we actually want to make happen. So anyway, we came up with a plan, right? And instead of her trying to add value in her organization, we had her pivot her attention and go network and find an organization that's actually willing to catch her winning. So probably took no more than, within a couple of months, she was having interviews, but literally within, I believe, about 6 months, she'd moved across the country, took a role with a management consulting firm, substantial pay increase and substantial rise in position. This other organization had no idea who she was or what they had, and they didn't care to know. And they kept showing her that they didn't care to know, but she wouldn't see it, right? And when someone shows you who they are, believe them. So in any case, once she redirected and that self-mastery was kind of restoring tact or back intact, she was able to make this dramatic shift in her life, right? Wrote a book. I don't think it's published yet, but she wrote it, starting a nonprofit. I mean, that's just one example, but I share that because that's one where she was investing so much energy and effort in wanting them to see her value when that's not what they were there for. They weren't there for that. Okay. Let me see. I was just looking at your comments and questions. Now, role mastery, again, you need to understand what's really in your organization's strategic plan. You really need to understand what they value versus what they say they value. You need to understand how your function or your specific role actually fits into that. Right? You will notice sometimes there's some departments in your organization, for those of you in companies, that are under-resourced, that are like chronically under-resourced. Right? That is an organization that doesn't have the level of influence that they should have in the organization. Right? That is a department or a function or a business unit that doesn't have the influence they should have. And oftentimes you need to look to the leader of that area and wonder why they're not investing in building that influence and helping the organization recognize their value if it's not readily apparent. But again, how you lead in one place is how you lead in another. Now, this person who lacks role mastery is now leading a team in a department that now lacks role mastery, and that's overlooked in the organization. Right? So much more we can say about that, but I want you to see how all of these things fit together, because this root cause is not just about interviewing. And then, of course, goal mastery. Now, this one's interesting because this kind of ties in a lot of the others. Right? The goal mastery, this is where you'll see people really thrown off their game when things don't go according to plan, or they get really significant if something doesn't work. So we'll have people, see, I'm all about pursuing accomplishments for accomplishment's sake, right? Probably a lot of you here are like that. Pursuing accomplishments for accomplishment's sake. The problem becomes when you pursue accomplishments to prove that you're worthy, right? So we want to separate all of that so that if you're pursuing something, it's not just to get another gold sticker and to finally feel worthy of being hired or getting a promotion or whatever the case is, but because you think it actually adds value to how you add value. Right? So you have people who don't know how to manage or plan for obstacles, how to manage and plan for failure. And so when something goes off the rails, they're like, well, let me just do more. Instead of evaluating and getting strategic and distinguishing what they could try differently next. We need to be strategic, especially in a job market like this, but really all the time. It is your job, your number one priority, to get and stay promotion ready. It is your number one priority to be the best chief strategist and decision maker for your career that you can be. Yes? Okay, so I'm going to continue. Oh, well, if this lets me. So this was everything we just talked about. Again, if you're on my list, if you actually registered with me, you'll receive this slide as well, just to kind of remind you some of what we talked about. But I want to introduce, and I've talked about some of these as we've been talking. I'm going to skip these because we're going to be low on time, but these are just some of the kind of foundational philosophies. We're really big on strategy because you need to be strategic. We're big on you owning your agency, and I've talked about that often. It's important and critical that you're able to intentionally cultivate opportunities and create options for yourself so that you can dictate the direction of your career versus someone else defining it for you. And then, of course, the self-awareness to recognize when your brilliance has been hijacked, right? And it's time for a pause versus a reaction. Okay. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to the Intentional Leadership Group. This is the official end of the teaching portion. And I'm actually going to go back to this one. This is the end of the teaching portion, but here's what I want you to understand. I want to give you an opportunity right now, like today, to start working on this. Because the best thing, the most important thing that you can do for your career is step into that agency. It's to become and stay promotion ready. It's to be in a position to call the shots, to create opportunities, to open doors and windows of your own design. Because the alternative really is kind of waiting for, their shoe to drop and, another layoff announcement or another reorg or whatever it is that comes next. And we do not want to put ourselves in that position. We do not want to be at the mercy of the organization's decisions. We want to be there for our organization, but by choice, not by chance or because we don't have a choice. Yes? So the most important thing you can do is start working on addressing those core gaps today. That's the most important thing you can do for your career. Because look, the longer you go on not taking action, the less likely you're going to take action. That's just, that's just part of being a human being. That is how we are. Right? So whether you decide to work with me, check out the Intentional Leadership Group or not, I want you to get clear on what action you can start taking today, like intentional, strategic. Because here's the thing, there's a financial cost. I think some of you saw when I posted this, and a couple people even sent me a note, right? When you consider that, almost all of my clients are professionals earning six figures, multiple six figures. Easily delaying the success in a job search by just 4 weeks is easily $15,000, $10,000 on the low end, but for some $20,000, $30,000. That's just a 4-week delay. And so sometimes people will be between roles and be like, well, I can't afford to invest in myself because I'm between roles. I'm like, folks, you cannot afford not to invest in yourself, in particular because you're between roles, because the cost of delaying getting in that role and getting that next paycheck or that next raise is so much larger than had you invested in yourself. Okay, I'm gonna go on with that, but I want you to understand the importance. Again, whether you choose to work with me, whether you choose to go elsewhere, you need to take action and be willing to invest. Right? That is the biggest gift to your career, because at least in particular, what we teach, right, the 3-pillar framework, you will have that with you forever and you will use it forevermore. And you will always have those materials to go back to and refresh when you need it. But let me introduce you to the Intentional Leadership Group and what that consists of, and I'll answer any questions after that. But the Intentional Leadership Group, just in a nutshell, right? It is a 3-month leadership and career accelerator. You get promotion ready in 90 days. Now, even though it's a leadership program, the way that I've structured it is set up to really position you to be able to make a move, whether it's internal or external, or to be in that role of intentionally creating new opportunities. We use and follow the 3-pillar framework that you're now very familiar with because we focus on what you control. We don't focus on, changing someone else because they're not in the room. I'm not coaching them, I'm coaching you. You'll create a strategic plan. You'll also create an influence plan, and you'll implement it while you're in the program. You'll discover your leadership and conflict style. I just listed a few things here, but you'll learn to assess your organization's real priorities. And that one there, like, that is gold. Learning to assess what's actually important to your organization, to the interviewer, etc., versus what they say is important is gold and will save you every time. Choosing the right career success levers. A lot of you, and I was in this boat, will overinvest, just like that client I was telling you about, in trying to get your boss to see your value. Yes? Trying to get your boss to see your value. How many of you have fallen into that trap only to find, again, either your boss is unwilling to catch you winning, right? Or in the process of trying so hard and spinning your wheels to get them to see your value, you passed up who knows how many other fantastic opportunities. So this is one of the things that you learn in the program, the Big 6 career success levers, and the importance in investing correctly in the right levers and not over-investing in the ones who aren't working, right? Which that's the one that we often over-invest in. Yeah. And we've been taught that, we've been taught to manage up and all those things. I'm not suggesting that you don't need to manage up. We do, but I am suggesting that there's so much more to a successful career than being liked by your boss. Yeah. In fact, there's a very good chance that if your boss is not a fantastic leader, they will already feel intimidated or, I don't know, maybe intimidated is not too strong a word, but they might actually feel threatened a little bit by your brilliance. So in any case, I'm going to continue. Now, this is something we added to the program because it wasn't originally included, but I realized that some clients, they left the 3-month program and they're definitely better leaders. They're more confident, but they weren't able to get into immediate action because they didn't have their career collateral taken care of. Now, that's not what I do. So I hire somebody to work with my clients, and she was absolutely fantastic. Now, some of you who are here and have already worked with her, please feel free to share in the chat your experience and if you found that to be valuable. But yeah, she's absolutely fantastic. She has a way of distilling even the most kind of diverse and disconnected backgrounds into where every single line in your resume is meaningful and communicates what it needs to communicate. Right? You also get a professional story workshop. This is where, as a group, you create your professional story. And why the professional story is so important is because it puts an end to you not knowing how to introduce yourself, you not knowing how to tell people what you're looking for, you not knowing how to talk about what you've done and where you want to go. Right. So that is it. It always boggles my mind, and you don't have to out yourself if you don't want to. If you've ever gone to conferences and you come home, all you come home with is a bag full of swag and crap you don't need. No contacts, no interviews, etc. In fact, when I had clients in a last cohort who ended just before this one, immediately after the professional story session, she'd gone to a conference. We had had this conversation, right, about going to a conference and coming back with swag. I'm like, forget the swag. You don't need any more swag. You don't need any more bags or t-shirts or rulers or, none of that. What you need is to network and talk to people. So typically she'd go to conferences. Now, this was National Black MBA that she went to. So this was you'll know the timing. It was a few months ago. She went to National Black MBA and she talked to people, which she never did before because of the program. She actually talked to them. And then here's what's funny. She was waiting to get a car back to the airport, and there was somebody else there waiting. And so they started chatting and they decided to share a car. And I kid you not, this person was hiring for the role that she wanted. So she's now been in that organization now, I guess it's about 6 months. but she got the job because she didn't go to this conference, just go from seminar to seminar and not talk to anybody. She actually engaged, did something she would have never done, which was share the car back to the airport. And by the end of it, already had the interview scheduled. So it happens very quickly. It happens very, very quickly when you're willing to get out of your own way. And so, again, we did some of this because we wanted it to happen even more quickly. You also get your cover letter template, and you get your LinkedIn makeover. So our professional career and resume marketing person will tell you what to add or change to your LinkedIn so that it communicates that value, so that you don't have an inadvertent value void when people come to look at your resume. Okay. So learning and support. We have a community portal. You can submit documents for review online in the portal. You can submit your professional story if you're working on it. You can submit, edits to things. You can ask questions about your interviews. We share resources and tools there. You can ask me any coaching questions, in there. And you can also seek input from the group, right? And that's available all the time, 24 hours a day. But these are the logistics of the program. So let me tell you the logistics. It's on Tuesdays, beginning April 23rd. That is our first night for this spring cohort. We're going to meet at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. They're going to be 90-minute sessions. And in those sessions are typically split up into 3 areas. There is a new strategy or competency that you learn. You have an opportunity to apply it and to mastermind with the smaller group. And you can actually raise your hand for coaching. And the reason I want to specify that coaching piece is because that is so important, right? To have somebody kind of sit with you and look at your brain together with you, right? No judgment or anything, and strategize how best to move forward. It can be very powerful. But even when you don't raise your hand for coaching, watching somebody else get coached, I don't know if you've ever done that before, but it's very, very powerful. It's very informative to hear the answer you didn't even know you needed in somebody else's coaching and question. Now, this is something new I've added this week because I feel like we always need more time. So for some of you who are in here, again, if you're going to be in the next cohort, I'm adding an additional weekly hour of live coaching separate from the 4 p.m., 7 p.m. Tuesday sessions, so that you can just drop in. You don't even have to RSVP. You can just drop in. Sometimes you might be the only person there. Sometimes there might be 10 other people there, and raise your hand for live on-the-spot coaching on any emerging challenges or roadblocks, or just to get yourself out of your way or work through your plan. Whatever the case is, I just wanted to make myself available for that hour for additional coaching, because again, there's always so much to cover that I feel like the coaching needed more time and more space to breathe. We also start with the Leadership Confidence Intensive. The Leadership Confidence Intensive is incredible. I call it an awareness accelerator because you leave the Confidence Intensive a different leader than you walked in. It is a weekend. It is April 27th to 28th. It's just 3 hours each day. I'm going to ask you to block out 3.5 hours just in case, but it is a game changer. It changes the way you see yourself. It changes the way you see your team. It changes the way you see what's possible for your career. And you can start to apply it very, very quickly. But again, you enter one way and you leave a very different way. Now, the entire program, again, we focus on the 3-pillar framework, but the entire program is $3,750. It includes everything that I just mentioned. There are payment options that, I think we have set up for Affirm, Klarna, Afterpay for people who don't want to dig into their pockets and pay all at once. They typically offer some interest-free options that are like as low as $160 a month. So really, even if you're between opportunities, there's no reason to postpone getting the type of results that you want to get. Now, for those of you who are already on my list, you should have gotten an email a while ago that details everything we talked about. But something we haven't talked about are the bonuses. And so I'm going to tell you about that because these are really awesome. Because this one is focused on job search triage, I wanted to do a job search clinic so that we can actually workshop whatever is happening in your job search before we even start the program. So as of right now, I have the job search clinic. And again, I haven't confirmed it yet, but I believe that is Monday, March 25th. So it'll start Monday, March 25th, and we'll meet 5 days for about 90 minutes to 2 hours each day. And each day has a very specific deliverable and outcome. Okay, so that you can speed up whatever is next and start to incorporate some of our strategies and tools. Day 1 is all about articulating your value proposition. This is so that you can talk about how you, let's say you're a product manager, uniquely bring your expertise into your role as product manager, so that you can articulate that at the drop of a dime, right? You don't hesitate. Why should we hire you? You know that off the top of your head because no one else is you, right? So that first day is going to be a fantastic workshop, that first day, in clarifying that, because even if you already know exactly what you want next, being able to articulate your value proposition powerfully is just going to get you there faster. And if you don't know clearly what you want next, articulating that value proposition is going to bring you clarity. Okay. Day 2, we're then incorporating your unique value proposition and making sure that you've taken opportunities to incorporate it into your resume and your LinkedIn so that your materials are already, even before our career expert has worked with you one-on-one, that it's already reflected there. Day 3 is interview triage. I'm going to introduce you to the 3 conversations you need to be able to have so that you can be successful, at least have great conversation just about any interview. And of course, one of them is already the, tell me about yourself, and you're going to have multiple ways to address that. But I really want to understand these 3 conversations that are so important you're able to have confidently and powerfully and at the drop of a dime, right? Because this is what they're looking for. This is what they're looking for. Day 4 is networking that works. And again, without getting weird. Okay, we don't need to get weird. Including specific kind of phrases and outreach for connecting with people maybe you haven't talked to for a long time, and now you want to reach out to them for help or for an informational interview. That's okay. Don't get too far in your head about that. We're going to give you the exact words to use. And then finally, on day 5, this one's really powerful. It's the negotiation station. I just liked how that sounds. So that's what we're going with. But this includes stealth strategies. And what I mean by stealth strategies are strategies for, how many of you are afraid or really hesitant to negotiate, or only negotiate half-heartedly because you're afraid to risk the offer or the relationship or them not liking you or thinking you're greedy or something like that? Yes? So I'm assuming this has applied to at least a handful of us here, because I know there's a delay in the chat. But we're going to give you the exact way to do stealth negotiation so that you can do it confidently and kind of get out of your own way with that false belief that you're going to risk the offer. Okay. Now, how many people are allowed into the session? I have a max of 20, but typically we're about, somewhere about, I don't know, between 10 and 20, but we have a max of 20. Let's see, what else did I want to say about this? I think that was it. So this is the bonus. Again, you get this bonus as long as you're enrolled by Friday. So you're great. Let's see, next page. Okay. Also, by Friday, you get a one-on-one professional story session. So I know we said you have the group story session, but this is a one-on-one session for 60 minutes with our interview pro. Our interview expert will sit with you. They'll work through your professional story, and they'll work through any like interview kind of challenges you're afraid to address or don't know how to address, whether it's because you've been in the same employer for a long time or have been at a bunch of employers for a short time, whatever the case is. She's fantastic, right? And this one-on-one session is very valuable. This in and of itself is a game changer. So you definitely want that bonus. And again, you'll never hesitate to talk about yourself or what you want to do once you have the words to go with it. I mean, how many times have you not reached out to somebody just because you didn't know what to say? We don't want that to be what is stopping you from making your move, from having agency in your career, from creating the opportunities you want to have, right? We don't want that to be what's stopping you. Yes, Peggy, yes. Don't know how far to push on the negotiation. That is so common. That is so common. We're going to teach you how to, it won't feel like a push. It'll feel like an exploration. Okay. They will appreciate it. You will appreciate it. And it's a great way to make like $1,000 a minute, right? Just by spending 10 minutes in negotiation and prepping for that and getting yourself a bump of 10 or 20,000 or whatever the case is, or whatever other perks you were hoping for. So yes, those negotiation stumbling blocks, it's tough. And so we want to get those out of the way. But again, back to the interview prep, that is gold. So you're going to want that as well. But let me continue. And then this is a today only. So for those of you watching this as a replay, if you're not watching it on Tuesday, March 12th, this does not apply. Okay. But for anyone enrolling today, you get a one-on-one executive coaching session with me. This is like a VIP deep dive coaching session. There is a lot we can get done in 50 minutes. It is private. It is just the two of us. You have the option to record it and take it with you. Again, working with me one-on-one is obviously a lot more costly, but I do have a couple spots available. So you're also welcome to inquire about those. But you do get this for free if you enroll today. So I need to see it come through, by the end of March 12th, and you will get the one-on-one session with me. Okay. And the other thing is you get immediate access. I'm not going to make you raise your hands, but I know there are a large number of us who have experienced less than ideal bosses, right? That's my nicest way I can put it. And maybe are carrying some of that baggage with them into their new roles, into their interviews, into their networking, right? Even into how they're carrying out their existing role. And so the Bad Boss Breakthrough Solution is it's the first program I created after I started my company. And it was really intended to help you reclaim who you are. Because more than anything, you'll find that it's hard to, and let me know if this resonates, but it's hard to stop fixating on the past when you don't have a compelling future, right? To pull your eyes this way, right? You're going to keep looking back that way. Whereas if you have a compelling future to move into, like you will with the intentional leadership group, you're less likely to keep ruminating on the past. But even with a compelling future to live into, having been in a particularly toxic experience for a long time, it can do a number on you, right? Your psyche, your emotional health, often even your physical health. And so this helps address some of that, kind of help you reframe quickly so that you can focus on what's next, right? And shortcut. Because if you've ever, again, been in a particularly toxic space, there's a good chance that you left the job, but you didn't leave the experience, right? It came with you. You brought all of that self-doubt. You brought all of that concern. You brought all of that diminishment and resentment with you to the next role. We're not doing that, right? You're just bringing your power and your intention into the next role. So I think this brings us to our Q&A. I think I've covered everything, but I did want to put on the screen everything that you get so you can see it all at once. Right? I think I got everything in there. So questions. I am here to stay for questions as long as you have them. I cannot believe I went over. I can't believe it. We're over already 97 minutes. Okay, I hope this was worthwhile, even though we went over. So my apologies. I didn't realize I'd already gone over time. But what questions do you have? What questions do you have that I can address? I will tell you this. The program primarily is for people who are already accomplished professionals, have at least 10 plus years of professional work experience. The program is not for recent graduates. Okay, so the program is not for you if that's the case. The program is not a, what color is your parachute program? So you need to have some idea, right, of where you're trying to go and what you want to accomplish next for it to be the most valuable. If you have no idea about where you want to go and what you want to accomplish next, this is not for you. Okay. The program is effective whether you are an independent contributor or a team, department, division lead, that it's all appropriate. But that's also why I require at least the 10 years of professional work experience, because it creates a different level of expertise in the room and a higher level of conversation when you're all together with your other cohort team members. So far for this cohort, and we're about 6 weeks in, I know one person already got her new role, which is fantastic. She was already in a role and got to a new role. And then we have a couple who are now in interviews. But not everybody is coming in looking to make a change. So that's what I wanted to bring up. You don't need to join the program because you want to get another job. In fact, a lot of our folks stay within their organizations, but they should show up as more powerful, effective leaders. And that is by design. That is what we want to have happen. We want you to show up as a more powerful, confident, effective, intentional, strategic leader. Because, one of the things I like to say is we help you, whether it's because you want to make your move or because you want to make your mark. Either way, this does that. Yeah. So yes, you know where you want to go. No idea how to make the move up from manager to director. Would this be the program for me? Absolutely. In fact, most of our clients are looking to make that next level move, right? And there is something different that needs to happen, both when you're going from individual contributor to, manager/director. There is a shift that you need to make. And then, of course, for those going from director to VP, there's another shift that you need to make. And the tools that you learn in the program will address both of those, because they put you in that strategic space, right? And there's something I refer to. If you're not already on my list, by the way, get on my list, because I have a Sunday newsletter, Skip Level Strategies. And you'll want that. I send something out every Sunday I call it a 5-minute strategy. Sometimes it takes more than 5 minutes, but they're usually pretty good. And they have you thinking a couple of levels above what you might otherwise be thinking, or what your peers might be thinking, because that's the point. I want you to have skip level opportunities. I want you to have skip level growth. I want you to have skip level strategies. Okay, other questions? Let me see, what else was I going to mention about this? I mentioned there are a whole bunch of payment options now that we've added in the last few months, which is fantastic. Again, most of our clients just pay outright, but for those who'd rather keep the cash in their pocket, especially if there's one of the interest-free options being available, please feel free to take advantage of that as well. And I think that's everything, but I think there are a lot of you still on. So what questions do you have? What can I answer? And let me see. Will this be made available? This is on YouTube. Yes, this is also on YouTube. It should be live on, it is live on YouTube. A whole bunch of you are on YouTube. It is on YouTube now. So if you are subscribed to my channel, you will see it there. It's also here, obviously on LinkedIn. You'll be able to come back and watch it here as well. Let's see, what other questions? Okay. Paul, had a great first interview with the hiring manager, talked about next step, left feeling positive, then communication lockout, nothing. So now, of course, this can happen anytime, right? Getting ghosted after what felt like a really good interview. Yes. Anybody else experience that here? Getting ghosted after what felt like a good interview? Right now, I'm hearing this happen more when people have been interviewing for roles that then get cut, and they don't want to tell you it's cut yet in case they can get it put back on the docket, right? So I don't know if that sounds familiar for any of you, and some of you are probably on the hiring manager side of the house, but sometimes that's what happens. They don't want to necessarily tell you that there are reorgs going on or that there are changes happening because they don't want to scare you away. So sometimes they will go silent. It's also possible, and I know this is a little dark, but it's also possible the hiring manager is no longer there. Yes? Again, so many changes. More the reason to become an expert at cultivating opportunities on purpose. Let's see, what else? Yeah, so sometimes there are options, but they're no better than the one you have. Seldom is that true. So I'm gonna push back and say seldom is that true. Right? They're often options as good as, if not better than, the one you have. Now, maybe in the moment, the one you have is the best option for you. Like it's the one that lets you work the way you want, when you want, where you want, etc. And that's absolutely fine because you made the choice that is what's important to you. Yes? You made that decision. You made that choice. Okay, let me see if I've missed anything else. I have a bachelor's degree. Do I need a master's for advanced career growth? No, you don't. There are plenty of people with bachelor's degrees at VP level and above in organizations. So no. Now, if the master's potentially is a specialty master's and it's going to support what you're trying to do in that role, then by all means. But I'm going to caution, and this is for everybody, yes, don't go collecting credentials to have you feel like, well, now I'm ready. Because how many people with PhDs are unemployed or underemployed because they chased it, not because they even necessarily wanted to teach or do research, because they thought it would make them kind of a better prospect, yes, or invincible when it came time to looking for jobs. But we see that's not the case. So don't go chasing credentials. Be strategic and intentional about the credentials that you decide to pursue, okay? Make sure that they make sense. It's because you want the knowledge, not because you're trying to prove something. And then somebody had asked a question back here regarding using the LinkedIn green open to work banner. I don't have a strong opinion about that one way or another. I'm open to, hearing from you what your thoughts are. I would be less concerned about the open to work and less leaning on that. I might not turn it on my own, But that's because I would get really, really, really focused and determined to make sure that my LinkedIn profile, clearly articulated my value and maybe even said, that I'm exploring other opportunities or I'm exploring growth opportunity, whatever the case might be. So that's my thought. But again, I don't think it's a problem, or I don't think it's a roadblock. I just think I would rather focus my time and attention not on the green banner, but whether what my LinkedIn is saying about me and what I'm able to contribute and the value I can bring is spot on. I'd much rather you focus on that than focusing on whether you should or should not have the green banner on. Let's see. Other questions? Other questions? How about on-the-spot coaching? Who wants some on-the-spot coaching? Where are you getting in your own way? Where are you getting in your own way? Let me know. Where are you getting in your own way? Sorry, looking to see if I missed comments on any of the other platforms. Okay. So I think I've gotten all of them. What other questions do I get? I kind of told you who it's for and the folks in the room. Some people will ask, am I too old? Am I too young? So the answer to both is no, so long as you have, right, at least the 10 years of professional work experience, again, because it up-levels the quality of the conversation in the room. Okay. Now, in terms of should I join if I'm trying to make a career transition or pivot to a new industry? Short answer is yes. Like, should I join if I'm planning to retire in the next 5 or 10 years? Like, well, short answer, yes. If you want to enjoy what you're doing for the next 5 or 10 years, then I would say yes, join. It's not all about getting the job. It's about being the chief strategist and decision maker in your professional life. Yes. Now, some people here who, you've come to many of my programs, you haven't signed up yet. And like my heart goes out because I know that there's like an extended period of misery or stuckness. And I think if you're willing to bet on yourself, we can help you get past that. So I hope you're willing to bet on yourself, especially if you're sitting in a space of misery. No one needs that. I'm here not to help you get a job. I'm here to help you get free, because nobody needs to live in misery, get sick to their stomach on Sunday nights, have the blues when they know they have to go back to work on Monday, trade in relationships with their family, forfeit their well-being, and just as importantly, feel like they need to leave part of themselves at the door because where they work doesn't appreciate who they are and what they bring. Right? Again, I believe not everyone's trying to catch you winning, but a lot of people are. So go where people are trying to catch you winning. Yes. Let's see. Network stumbling block. Give us a tip on how to open up a conversation with someone that you've been out of touch with for an extensive period. So here's what I will tell you about that. Often people think they need to come up with something very kind of clever or like, well, I got to add value. I can't just say, hey, I need your help, or hey, I want an informational interview or a coffee chat. You know what? You can. So that's the tip I'm going to give you. But what you can't do is pretend to have one intention, but actually have another. And I know I mentioned this earlier, right? So when you're reaching out to people, let them know what you're reaching out for, right? That's fine. You can ask, how are the kids and how have you been doing and things like that. But be clear that, hey, I'm reaching out because I'm exploring my next steps and I'd love to hear what you think about the place you work, right? Don't get weird. Like, that's what we do. We get weird when we don't have the right words. Don't get weird. Just be more open. If you don't have the right words, be even more transparent. How about that? That's a great default. When in doubt, be a little more transparent. Yes? So I hope that helps a little bit. But again, we're definitely going to delve into that and give you specifics in the 5-day clinic that you get as a bonus. So I do hope that you'll be registering and joining us for that. But I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up now. We've been on for a really long time. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I have loved being with all of you. I hope that as we got to some of those root causes, you're able to identify some immediate steps you can take. Okay, that you can, some immediate steps, because I don't want this to just, sit in the back of your head like, yeah, I heard this kind of good advice. Put it into action. How are you going to put it into action today? That is the biggest gift you can give yourself and your job search. Okay, again, whether you work with me or elsewhere, but put it into action today, because the transformation lives in the application of what you learn, not in learning it. Okay, thank you all so much. You are so very welcome. I've loved being with you today. You're welcome, Paul. And thank you for being engaged. Thank you so much. And again, if you're on my list, you'll receive this via email, and you can always come back and rewatch this. Just remember, the one-on-one executive coaching bonus is only today. If you're watching this tomorrow, it does not apply. Okay. Thank you so much, leaders. Go out there and be intentional about your job search. Let me go back to this one. Hold on. I'm going to go back a couple because I want to. Let's see if I can go previous. Hold on. I want to bring this back up because I want you to. Here we go. Okay. Look at this. Take another last look at the job search triage wheel. I want you to be really, really intentional about how you're going to address each of these, right? And if you took the leadership index assessment, at bridgewellpro.com index, right, you'll get some additional information as well. But be really intentional. How are you going to address these, right? If you're not getting an offer, what kind of questions do you need to ask so that you can position and frame the value you bring as the answer to their prayers? Yes? So how are you going to address each and every one of these? What do you need to do to bring your self-confidence in? I know it's hard, especially if you're between jobs and it feels like everything's on the line and I need to pay the rent, and you're walking in with that. I want to invite you to consider approaching your interviews as just, I have a meeting. I have a conversation. If thinking about it as an interview is putting way too much pressure on you, stop thinking about it as an interview, right? And again, in the job search clinic, you'll learn the 3 conversations. It makes it simple to prepare for interviews. But really, what do you need to do to reconnect with your value? To know that, right, even if this one is a no, you have another one coming. So what I want you to do is have many pokers in the fire so that you don't feel distraught if one doesn't go the way you want it to, right? That is, central to the notion of intentional opportunity cultivation. So I know I'd already was wrapped up, but I wanted you to really reconnect with this. How are you going to be intentional about addressing the root cause, right? If it's a self-mastery gap, if it's a goal mastery gap or a role mastery gap, how are you going to address it so that it not only helps you in this job search, but in your career, right? Because you're going to get that role eventually, yes, and you want to knock it out of the park. You don't want to feel invisible. You don't want all of your hard work and effort to feel like it led to nothing, yes? Okay, that's everything. I'm going to stop talking now.
Okay, leaders, I have loved being with you so much. I look forward to seeing you inside the program. Feel free to drop me a note if you have any lingering questions. Otherwise, I will see some of you at the job search clinic. Okay, bye-bye.